All right, close this out. Now two, we won't need that open. All right, shalom, everyone. I'm Brother Doug, as always, with my brother Joshua here, and our sister Sally. My mom's on the other side of the room over here. So we are the Wakened by Yahuwah Assembly. We are going to be going into tonight. I'm going to be leading us into diving into this topic of differences in the Septuagint versus the Masoretic text versions of Genesis. So I would really recommend, I used to recommend the book that Rob Skiba did, Genesis, an extra biblically endorsed, extra biblical textbook, because he would do it side by side with the Bretons and King James side by side of Genesis. But unfortunately, it's way overly priced at this point. But I used to recommend that book. And that's kind of what started my journey really going into these texts is Brother Rob, rest in peace, Rob Skiba. He started going into there. He started testing these two texts for himself. He started seeing enormous differences in genealogies, in doctrine, in the main players and patriarchs in Genesis, how they're portrayed sometimes differently. So you're going to start seeing that as we get through this study. And there's even huge doctrinal differences as we're going to start off with. So what I want to do here very quickly, I don't want to waste too much time on this, but I do want to explain to you the two main manuscripts. And I will be linking the video that I've done a while back, very short, 30-40 minute video about what are these manuscripts. So mainly I'm going to discuss here very 5-10 minutes explanation here. The Septuagint, what we have today that's called the LXXE or Septuagint is basically the Tanakh of the disciples of the Messiah of the 2nd to 3rd century BC all the way to 1st century AD. Okay, for that 300-400 year gap. Okay, that was the only Tanakh they were really using during Messiah's time. Okay, when he was on the earth. Okay. Fast forward about almost 1,000 years, or actually, let me correct myself, like about 1,200 years later, you have these guys called the Masoretes. They hated Yahusha. They never accepted him as the Messiah. They were very similar to the non-believing Pharisees, just to put it in layman's terms. That's what their belief system was. They created what's called today the traditional Tanakh or a Masoretic text. So that text type was basically the tradition of the rabbis, the way they would translate into their Babylonian Hebrew text is the traditional text. It's you can find this on Wikipedia. It literally says it's the standard authoritative Old Testament of rabbinic Judaism. Okay, so you're going to see differences just based on the belief systems of the scribes who wrote the Masoretic text versus the scribes that predated Messiah that were more true to the original Paleo-Hebrew text that translated into Koine Greek. And if you want to know more about the Septuagint, I really recommend researching Philadelphus II. So there was this Greek leader, Philadelphus. What was his full name, Mom?
Oh gosh, it wasn't a Ptolemy.
Ptolemy, yes. Ptolemy Philadelphus II was the one that commissioned the LXX to be written in 285 BC.
That's right.
So he's the guy. So to do a little bit more research, you have to understand a little bit more. I would research Alexander the Great, Ptolemy Philadelphus I, which was his dad, which was a general of Alexander. So if you want to know more about what I'm talking about, definitely do your own research into that. But just to put it in layman's terms, Septuagint, which was Messiah's Bible, quote unquote, okay, and the Masoretic text, which is in every Christian modern translation mostly, which is the rabbinic Tanakh. Okay, so just to put it in layman's terms. Okay, so now after that whole explanation, now we're going to start here. Okay, so differences in the book of Genesis, LXX versus MT, Septuagint versus Masoretic text, the Adonai Deception Part 9. So you will find Adonai added into the Masoretic text 11 times so far I've found in Genesis when testing these two versions. Okay, so first we're going to go to Genesis chapter 2, verse 3. This is a big one here, in my opinion. This is a big change that the Masoretic did here. So what I'm going to do here for you guys, I'm going to go with my parallel view here to make it very easy for you guys to see. So LXXE, and do I even have a GPS here? No, I might want to get that soon, just in case we have Jewish viewers. Okay, all right, so Genesis 2, verse 3, okay, or actually it's verse 2, my bad. So it's 2, verse 2, it says, and Alua finished on the 6th day his works which he made, and he ceased on the 7th day from all his works which he made. Now, the ISR 2009, mind you guys, this is a restored name Bible even says it, okay? And in the 7th day, Elohim completed his work. So the Masoretic says 7th, not 6th. Mm-hmm. And what they try to do to get around this, they'll say by, and even in the footnote, they'll try to say, well, maybe it should be more correctly by the 7th day or the end of the 6th day. They try to redeem the Masoretic here, but to be honest, the Masoretes had no reason to change the word 6 to 7. There's really no reason for that. There's no explanation you could really give for why they would need to change it. It originally was 6th. The reason we know this is you can look at other older versions of the Old Testament that are just as old as the Septuagint or a little bit later that still have the word 6th, not 7th. For example, Samaritan Pentateuch agrees with the Septuagint in Genesis 2, verse 2. So there's no reason for it to be changed. There's really no reason. That was probably some stupid tradition of men. And let me just fix this bullet point here. It should say Genesis 2:2, not 2:3. Okay, so now we're going to go to here. And honestly, this is a big pet peeve of mine is verse 6 in the same chapter. This is a big problem in my opinion, because it makes people think, people have gotten a false doctrine from this, that like it never ever rained. It never rained to the flood. There was only a mist that came up. Okay, this is a big pet peeve I have with the Masoretic text. Okay, so it says Genesis 2:6, the LXXE, which is abbreviation for Brenton's English translation of the Septuagint. Okay, it says here, but there rose a fountain out of the earth. So it's talking about from the waters of the abyss, a whole fountain sprung up and watered the ground, not a mist. Okay, the Masoretic says mist in the Hebrew. It literally says mist, supposedly. So that, oh, wow. Thank you, Brother Joshua, for bringing that up. Back to the first bullet point I went to, just to note the Aramaic Peshitta of the Torah, which most say would be around 90 to 100 AD, first century AD, also agrees with the Septuagint 6th day in Genesis 2:2. So again, there's really a bad problem when you're contradicting every other prior manuscript of the Tanakh. So that's pretty bad. And this one's bad too. I mean, what really missed? Really? Okay, that's just stupid. Okay, so again, it's not a King James fault. I used to think that it was the King James problem, but if it's really from the Hebrew it missed, then you have the Masoretics is the ones that changed the text. By the way, the Targums agree with the Septuagint and actually expound on it and say like it was like a whole fountain, like a huge fountain. So to say that it didn't rain, quote unquote, until the flood is incorrect. It's false to say that. Okay. So that, yeah. Yeah. I think Unkelos, whoever did Unkelos, I think, what's his name? Etheridge, I think, had a bias, and so did all these other guys like Tove Rose. They probably have a Masoretic-based bias, and that's why they're doing that, because it should say fountain. When you look at the other Targums, unless the Targum Unkelos is later than the Pseudo-Jonathan somehow, and the Pseudo-Jonathan's more accurate, I mean, that could be the case in that verse. I really don't know. I would have to look more into that. But the Pseudo-Jonathan definitely agrees with with the Septuagint. So very weird there. Genesis 2:9, Masoretic text omits learning. Okay, this is interesting. Yeah, so again, when we're about to go to the topic of the tree of learning the knowledge of good and evil. So again, or to and evil, to be more correct. So right here, the Septuagint is going to show a concept of they learned some type of knowledge from eating from that tree, which the Masoretic doesn't really give you in this verse. So, and that's why I say it's much more than, in my opinion, it's much more than just a general disobeying Yahuwah was the sin there. There was a specific reason he told them not to eat of that tree. I think this is just conjecture, theory on my part, is that it got corrupted somehow. Because why would they be learning something that Yahuwah doesn't want them to learn just from eating fruit? Okay, this makes me think that because we see in the previous couple of verses, I think chapter 1, it's the end of chapter 1 or the beginning of chapter 2, it says Yahuwah planted that tree. So, and according to scripture, everything Yahuwah made was tubed. So anyway, all right, let me see here. Hey mom, you think you could turn the air on?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Because it is kind of warm tonight. All right, so all right, let me see here. So now we're going to go backtracking here. Genesis chapter 1, verse 9, Masoretic text omits, and the water which was under heaven was collected into one place, and dry land appeared. So yeah, now we're going to go to another omission here. And I probably should have put chapter 1's quotations probably earlier in the study. That's my fault. So Genesis 1 verse 9, we're going to backtrack to chapter 1 verse 9 here. Let's see here. So chapter 1 verse 9. And it says here, and Alua said, let the water which is under heaven be collected into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. Now here's where the Masoretic's missing. So it further on says in the same verse, and the water which was under heaven was collected into its places, and the dry land appeared. So what's weird is that it doesn't, the Masoretic text doesn't feel the need to confirm what Yahuwah commanded to do be done. So it's a little weird. It's like they leave it up to suspense whether what he uttered into existence happened or not. You know what I'm saying? So you're left to assume that it happened, but it's not mentioned in verse 9 there. In the Septuagint, it is. So very weird to me. The next one we're going to go to is verse 16. The Masoretic text omits also or and. So depending on your translation of the Septuagint, the word also or and would be there where the Masoretic doesn't have either. So we're going to go to verse 16 here of chapter 1. Okay, so I'm going to show you why this is an issue. Many people have inherited this false belief system that somehow the moon and the stars are combined as one lesser light. I've heard this doctrine going around, and I think mainly it's due to the Masoretic text because they don't have the word and or also there. Okay, I'll show you how it reads differently. Just one word makes a huge amount of difference. And Alua or Elohim made the two great lights, the greater light for regulating the night, obviously it's talking about the sun, and the lesser light for regulating the night, the stars also. So from my understanding of this, what the Septuagint does differently is it shows that the stars are different from the moon. They're not the same thing. They're not the same thing. A star is not a moon. The moon's not a star. It's not the same thing. Now, because there's no also, people would get from the ISR or any Masoretic-based translation that the lesser light is both the moon and the stars. I mean, technically, I can still read that and get that they're two separate luminaries, but if you read into it eisegetically, like put your own interpretation into the text with the ISR, with the Masoretic text-based translation, you could kind of get that false understanding. You can't with the Septuagint. The Septuagint is clearly making a separation between the moon and the stars. Okay, so what it's actually saying in the text is the lesser light, the moon, and the stars, the messengers, both together rule the night, but the moon is the only lesser light. Okay, so that's where people get a false understanding of this verse and a false interpretation of it, mainly due to the Masoretic, in my opinion, leaving out the word also or and. And funny enough, the ISR actually has and there. But if you go to like JPS Tanakh or whatever, I think it would show it in italics, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway, so let me see here. We're going to go now to chapter 2, verse 4. LXX has singular, Masoretic text has plural. And I don't have many of these jotted down. For the most part, I didn't feel the need to include like differences with singular tense and plural tense. My bad, guys. Oof. Okay, Genesis 2:4. All right, so it says, this is the book of the generation of heaven and earth when they were made in the day which Yahuwah Elohim made the heaven and the earth. So again, heavens, it's not that much of a difference. It's like more of like a plural versus singular. Like I said, it's not a huge difference. See, in the Greek, they understand heaven. You got to understand cosmology with the Greeks is a little different from the Hebrews. They don't have an understanding of 3 levels of heaven. Okay, so that's a little different. That's more based on a bias, I would say. That's more of a bias, I would say, on that. With the Greek concept of the Eretz and the heavens and all that. What's a bigger difference, in my opinion, is the idea that if this is translated correctly, it would make it believe that he just started creating, which I wonder if the Masorites were gap theorists. I kind of wonder, in my opinion, because it's a little different here. You have, these are the births or the beginning of the heavens versus you have, this is the book of the generations of heaven and earth. So it's more of like a recording of when they were made. So to me, that's a little different. The Masoretic seems to try to promote some type of gap theory ideology. I could be wrong. But anyway, so moving on here, we're going to move on, go to Genesis 3:12. And I find this interesting. This is just a little pet peeve of mine. Sometimes the Masoretic will have him in a general sense versus Yahuwah's title of Elohim or even his name. Will make it very general. Unless you know the context of who's being referred to as the him, it's very confusing. So we're going to go to Genesis chapter 3, verse 12. Okay. All right. It's Genesis 3:12. All right. So, and the man said, the woman whom you gave to me to be with me, she gave me of the tree and I ate.
You gave to me.
I think I have the wrong citation here because I'm looking for him there. I don't see him. It might be a couple verses later on. Let me see here. Yeah, because that's almost identical there. It can't be that verse. All right, I'm just going to get rid of that cross-reference until I can find it. I'm going to move on there. So I think that's the wrong chapter and verse there. My bad about that. Okay, so we're going to go now to chapter 4, verse 6. Okay, so chapter 4, verse 6. Jeez, getting all these stupid notifications. Okay, chapter 4, 6. And it says here, and Yahuwah Elohim said to Cain, why is he angry towards you? Oh my goodness, enough, YouTube. And why is your face fallen? So the difference here, instead of just Yahuwah, it has Yahuwah Elohim in the Septuagint. So that would be Kurios for Yahuwah, Theos for Elohim or Alua. You only have Yahuwah there in the Hebrew, the Masoretic. So that's the major difference there. So moving on. Okay, so I think we got a guest, Brother Josh here. Okay. So, all right. Let me see here. So we're going to move on. Oh, shalom, Brother Josh. So we're going through a little doc I have here.
Okay. Yeah, shalom.
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 So let me try to find where I was at mentally here. Okay. Yeah. So now we're going to go to Genesis chapter 4, verse 9. All right. Chapter 4, verse 9. Get the word software back up here. All righty then. Okay, here we go. So again, we have here, and Yahuwah Elohim said to Cain. So we have Yahuwah by itself again in the Masoretic, and Kurios Theos combined would be Yahuwah Elohim in the original Paleo Hebrew, which the Septuagint literally translated from. So what's interesting here is that my guess would be, I can't prove this, but my guess is that they're trying to take Yahusha out of the text, because a lot of the times with the personifications of the Father and the Son, even though they're one entity, the personality or character of the Son is distinct in the text when you have Elohim after Yahuwah. That's like supposed to let you know this is Yahuwah of heaven armies speaking. So that is a distinct, the Septuagint, obviously, because they don't have a bias against Yahusha, would have it there. So, and you'll see that a lot of the times in the older versions of the Tanakh, like the Targums, sometimes where Yahuwah Elohim will even say the word of Yahuwah is speaking to Cain. So a lot of the times sometimes the Masoretic doesn't want people to realize that he's part of the Elohim oneness in Genesis 1, creating mankind. So that could be a bias of the Masoretes there. That's why they would leave out the second part of that compound name. So then let's see here. Okay, here's the he or the him I was talking about. In Genesis 4, verse 10, it says Yahuwah, obviously Kurios is a substitution for the Tetragrammaton in Greek. So Yahuwah said versus he said. It's a very subtle difference, minor difference, but I like the fact that at least it's showing you who his name is supposed to be there. Obviously, if you know the context of the chapter, is talking about the Father there, but I mean, it's a little weird that they would change it to he. So I don't know if they're trying to make it generalized. It's a little weird to me. But anyway, so let's see here. I might want to add that in there. So to the document, Genesis 4:10. Genesis 4:10. By the way, you can see these differences from like any modern Bible you're going to use in the Old Testament, in the Tanakh. Pretty much every Tanakh of any modern Bible is going to use the Masoretic text. So you should be able to find this even in the ESV, NLT, ISV, all of them. So it's not really a translator bias. It's more or less the text they're using to translate. So anyway, let's see here. All right, so now we're going to go to Genesis 4:13. And again, we have that problem there of them trying to get Yahusha, rid of Yahusha there in verse 13. Okay, so, and Cain said to Yahuwah Elohim, my crime too great for me to be forgiven. So again, it just has Yahuwah here. So again, the Masoretes would want you to believe that Yahusha never pre-existed, so he wouldn't be here. It would just be the Father by himself talking throughout the whole book of Genesis. So that's probably why they did that. And I'm just putting a theory out there. That's most likely, knowing what their background is, their belief system is. So anyway, so yeah. So let's see here, verse 15. Wow, 2 different times in the same verse. Wow, okay, so we're going to look that out, check that out. So already I think we've seen like 4 or 5 omissions of the word Elohim so far, Mom. So yeah, already we have that. Let's see here. So Genesis 4:15 we're going to go to next. Okay, so let me just get the share screen off of there, go to the word software. Okay. Oh, whoops. Scrolled too far down. So by the way, what I'm using for the Masoretic is the ISR 2009. I'm using for the Masoretic just so that I know a lot of people use it. So just showing that there's no bias here. Okay. So it says, and in the Septuagint, it says, and Yahuwah Elohim said to him. And then later on in the verse, again, it says, Yahuwah Elohim set a mark upon Cain. So as you can see, both times they get rid of the title Elohim after Yahuwah's name, most likely because they know that most people that believe in Yahusha would understand Yahuwah Elohim or Yahuwah of heaven's armies as Yahusha pre-incarnate. Most of the apostles would have understood that. Most of the first century would have understood that. So that's why they did that. Now, this is where a very rarity do I agree with the Masoretic, but, this here I would have to agree with them here. Genesis 4:16, the LXX has Elohim. Masoretic has Yahuwah. Now, obviously, Yahuwah is his name, so I seriously doubt in the original that Elohim would be there in that context. Sincerely doubt it. So I would have to go with the Masoretic this time. So moving on. Let's see here. Verse 26 is the same. So like I said, these are rarities. I would pick the Masoretic over the Septuagint. So far, these are like the 2 isolated times so far through this study. Now, this is very weird, I thought. So in Genesis 4:8, the Masoretic leaves out from the text of Cain actually telling his brother, let's go out to the field. So you actually get more of a context in the Septuagint and the Samaritan Torah why they're out in the field. Cain actually says to his brother, let's go out to the field to talk. You don't see that in the Masoretic text, so you're kind of scratching your head like, why the heck are they going to the field? So it's like leaving out distinct parts of the story that would actually make a little bit of sense. So let's see here. Genesis 4:8. So yeah, it said, let us go out into the plain. It's not there. So you're going to see sometimes the Septuagint and the Samaritan Torah agree with one another many times. So I forget the exact number. I think it's like somewhere between like 5,000 and 6,000 variants that the Samaritan Torah has with the Masoretic. The Septuagint agrees with those 5,000 or 6,000 variants. So definitely something to look more into. Genesis 4 verse 15, Masoretic text omits not so. So again, they omit seems like a key phrase there. let's see here. So I think we already shown on the screen Genesis 4:15. So I think we're going to move on to chapter 5, verse 18. So this is where you start really getting some of the differences, like I was mentioning in the introduction here. You're going to get a lot of genealogy differences, like the ages of people and stuff like that. So you're going to start seeing that. So Genesis 5, verse 18. And again, I don't have time to fully explain it, but basically the claim even in the Talmud is supposedly that they wanted Shem to be Melchizedek. So what they did was they made people live longer in the genealogy so that Shem, the son of Noah, would still be alive when, he goes to Abraham. So it's like intentional, it seems like, is the claim. But I'll give you guys a video to look for yourselves to do some research on that. But I think it's very plausible, in my opinion. That was the case. Why there's so many differences in the ages of the genealogies from Genesis 5. So, let's see here. So, and Jared lived 162 years and brought forth Hanuk. Okay. Oh, actually, this is the same. My bad. This one is the same. Okay. That's my fault. That's my bad. I thought it said 62. I don't know that. I might have just been really tired one night putting this together. Yeah, no, actually it says 162 for both. So I'll take away that one. That's one less difference there. All right. So we're going to move on to verse 21 of chapter 5. Check this difference out here. So let me just see here. Okay, so verse 21 of chapter 5. Enoch lived 165 years. Yeah, here we go. 165 to 65. Yep. Enoch lived 165 years and begot Methuselah. So there you have, in the Masoretic says he begot him at 65 years old.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yep. The scriptures 2009, 65. Yep. So it makes it look like they were having children super young for no reason. When mind you, this is pre-flood. They're living to almost 1,000 years.
Right.
So why would they have a child that young?
That's right. Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. So that's what I mean by there's an agenda there. There's no reason for them to have children that young when your life expectancy is 10 times more than what it is today. So LXX, Genesis chapter 5, verse 22. LXX has 200. Masoretic has 300. So we're going to look at this. This is another age, I believe, of someone. So we're going to look at this again. So again, these are genealogical differences for those just joining and those watching on YouTube Live right now. Okay. Enoch was well pleasing to Yahuwah after, or maybe I should say Alua there. Well pleasing to Alua after his begetting Methuselah. Find it interesting that instead of there. Find interesting there. 200 years, and he begot sons and daughters. Now, obviously, you have 300. So again, it's trying to say Methuselah lived Hanuk walked with Elohim 300 years instead of 200 years. So again, it's trying to prolong the genealogy for a purpose, I think, is what it's showing here. Now let's go to verse 25 of the same chapter. We have 167 for the LXX. Masoretic text says 187. I'm sorry for my connection seems to be horrible tonight, man. I don't know what's going on here. Every once in a while we get this problem here. All right, so we're going to be looking at Genesis 5:25. All right. Come on, man. Jeez. Zoom is very slow tonight. All right. Okay, so 5:25. 5:25 here. All right. Let's see here. All right. Why the heck is my speaker not? Want to make sure that's working there. Wow. Seems to something wrong with this microphone. All right, so let's see here. Verse 25. Methuselah lived 167 years, begot Lamech, 187 years, as you can see there in the Masoretic. So 20 more years it would be claiming after begetting Lamech. All right, so now we're going to go to verse 26. 802 versus 187. Now, this is really weird, in my opinion. Very weird, because that's a huge jump. See here. So here we go. Verse 26 here. So it says, and Methuselah lived after his begetting Lamech 802 years and begot sons and daughters. So 802. Oh, my bad. So it's actually 802 versus 782. Okay, my bad. That's my fault. All right, so it's not 187. I don't know where I got that from. So that's 782, but that's still, give or take, 18 years would be 800. So you're still looking at about 20-year difference. Still looking at a 20-year difference there. Then go to verse 28 of Genesis 5. So now we're going to go to 28 of Genesis 5. And Lamech lived 188 years and begot a son. So now it says 188 versus 182. So there's a 6-year difference there. So very weird to me. Genesis chapter 5, verse 29. And again, we go back to them trying to take Yahusha out of the text here. So the LXX in verse 29 of Genesis 5 says Yahuwah Elohim. Masoretic text says Yahuwah. So right here. So it says Genesis 5:29. And he called his name Noah, saying, this one will cause us to cease from our works and from the toils of our hands and from the earth which Yahuwah Elohim had cursed. Now, this is interesting when you think about it, right? The verse that Yahusha is being spoken of pre-incarnate is the same verse that is giving the meaning of Noah's name as rest. I just find that interesting. Don't know if there's a connection there, but I find it interesting. And again, they take out Elohim in this verse. So it just says Yahuwah has cursed. Okay, so very interesting to me. Could be hinting that Yahusha is our rest. I don't know. Could be hinting. We do have the Basora in the meanings of the names of the patriarchs in Genesis 5. So I'm just saying it's not too far stretched to say that, in my opinion. So let's see here. Genesis 5, verse 30, LXX 565, Masoretic text 595. So now you have a difference of 30 years here in verse 30. So Genesis 5, verse 30 says, and Lamech lived after his begetting Noah 565 years and begot sons and daughters. So it says, and then in the Masoretic, would have Noah living 595 years after he begot Lamech. Interesting.
The numbers are all screwed up.
So it seems like, why would they want Noah to live 30 years later than what the Septuagint says? Well, you do have Shem coming from Noah. Just saying. Go ahead, Brother Joshua.
I was just going to say, isn't that to promote the whole Shem doctrine?
That would make it possible. I remember, what's the Christian guy's name that mentioned on a chart way back when. Ken Hovind mentioned it one time that he still was pro-Masoretic, so he was trying to show how, it's very possible Shem met Noah. And, so it definitely seems like whether he inadvertently meant to say that, it kind of brings credence to my theory that would be the reason to make him live longer. Because if you have him dying 30 years prior to what the Masoretic, that means that everyone that's from Noah, like that, it's like a domino effect. Mm-hmm. So there's no way Shem could meet Abraham, is what I meant to say. Meet Abraham. There's no way Shem's gonna know Abraham if Noah's dying 30 years earlier than what the Masoretic wants you to believe. So yeah, I definitely agree with you. Definitely think there's an agenda there. Genesis 5 verse 31, LXX has 753, Masoretic has 777. So again, like almost a 20-year difference. So verse 31, and then we're going to be jumping to chapter 6. Yahuwah willing, we're going to at least get to the differences of chapter 6 and 7 by the end of this study tonight. That's why I'm kind of going quick, guys, because I want to at least get close to the double digits before we end this study tonight. So I know we're not going to finish all 50 in one session, obviously. There's 50 chapters in this book, so obviously we're not going to finish it tonight. But anyway, so verse 31, and all the days of Lamech were 753 years, according to the Septuagint. According to the Masoretic, 777. So again, actually, I have to correct myself. That's more than 20 years. That's 24 years difference. So again, that's a huge difference in my opinion. So you start seeing there's already agendas we're seeing, and we're just beginning. In the 5th chapter of Genesis here, there's already you could say agenda. Now we're going to go to Genesis 6:3. Now this is what I would call a huge doctrinal difference that most people, when they read Genesis 6, they already have a preconceived Christian upbringing, and they say, oh, well, see, he's just striving with us. No. Okay. Almost every other manuscript disagrees with the Masoretic there. Okay. Septuagint in Genesis 6:3 says, Yahuwah Elohim, again, trying to get rid of Yahusha here in the Masoretic. And Yahuwah Elohim said, my spirit, so the Ruach of Yahuwah is the Ruach of Messiah. Notice that. My spirit shall not certainly remain with these men forever, meaning mankind, because they are flesh, but their days shall be 120 years. Okay, so the Masoretic changed remain or not remain to strive, to not strive, which doesn't make any sense. The whole purpose of this chapter is corruption, spiritual and genetic, if you read this whole chapter in context. So the point is that Yahuwah is saying his spirit cannot dwell with them anymore. Something they have done has caused them to not dwell with them. And you can see that echoed by the Vulgate. Other manuscripts agree with the Septuagint in Genesis 6 verse 3 should say not dwell versus not strive. Okay, so that's the major difference there in that verse. Okay, so Genesis chapter 6 verse 5, and I should make a notation here in 6:3 that again the LXX has Yahuwah Elohim versus just Yahuwah. So Masoretic text leaves out Elohim. Okay. So Genesis 6 verse 5. Masoretic text omits Elohim and Septuagint has Yahuwah Elohim. So literally 2 verses later, we have the same problem in Genesis 6. The LXX would say, and Yahuwah Elohim, having seen that the wicked actions of men were multiplied upon the earth, and that everyone in his heart was intently brooding over evil. I like how the Septuagint says his intently, meaning on purpose. Okay, this was willful brooding over evil. Okay, not like the enemy puts a thought in your head. Okay, this is more or less like intentional, on purpose. They're of themselves thinking of evil things. So versus the Masoretic just has Yahuwah, doesn't have Yahuwah Elohim. And it says the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. So it doesn't let you know whether it's intentionally or by mistake. Go ahead, Brother Joshua.
Can you expound on, just for listeners, can you expound on why it's important that it's missing Elohim? Why it's important that they took out Yahuwah Elohim versus, just saying Yahuwah?
Yeah. So basically, it's the concept of the oneness of the Father and the Son. And these Masoretes don't like Yahusha. They didn't believe in him as the Messiah. They didn't believe in him as the pre-incarnate Word of Yahuwah person that we see in Revelations. So what happens is when you see sometimes the Masoretic will even take out of armies. I've seen it where it says Yahuwah of hosts or of armies. Sometimes they'll take out that Sabaoth title after Yahuwah. So they intently try to take out Yahusha pre-incarnate to try to, because in the Jewish mind, in Judaism's, rabbinic Judaism's mind, Yahusha didn't pre-exist. He was a mortal man. That's all he was. He was fallible. He was a mortal man. He was not divine. He was not a pre-incarnate being that took on flesh. The doctrine of pre-incarnate Messiah, modern day Judaism does not accept. Now, older rabbinic thought accepted this concept. That's why you'll see in the Targums, instead of Yahuwah Elohim, it will say the word of Yahuwah, having seen the wicked actions of men. So the rabbis actually wrote the Targums around 1st to 3rd century not BC, AD, which is, we're already talking about 1,000 years removed from the Targums at this point. They understood this concept. They understood a pre-incarnate Messiah being who was the Father himself. So they had no problem with this. The problem was when Yahusha came, when that word of Yahuwah came, he got rejected. But this idea of, it was in their Hebraic culture that Yahuwah Elohim would be the Son. It would not. It's a distinct pointing out of the oneness that this is the Messiah talking, Messiah pre-incarnate. Matter of fact, that's what I like about Tove Rose's Bible he's done for himself. The New Messianic Version, I think it's called. You can find it on YouVersion Bible app. Tove Rose, who also translated Targums, he has done his own translation of the Tanakh and Brit Hadashah, and he puts in quotations pre-incarnate Messiah in John 1:1 for the word. So this was an ancient Hebraic understanding that most people in the 1st century AD to the 3rd century AD would have understood. The authors of the Targums, like I said, understood this. So later on in rabbinical Judaism, they rejected this mindset. They don't believe in a divine Messiah. They don't believe that anyone's with Yahuwah or ever was with Yahuwah as part of Yahuwah. So they, like, Hashem to them is just it. That's just there's only a Father. There's no oneness. Their idea of Deuteronomy 6:4 is that it's Yahuwah alone or Hashem alone. And there's no pre-incarnate Messiah idea. The Messiah to mainstream Judaism today is a mortal man. That's a prophet. That's it. A mortal man that brings peace, a mortal man that's a prophet. That's what they believe today. So just to expound on why they would want to take out Elohim there is because they know that Yahuwah Elohim is referring to the messenger of Yahuwah, Yahusha pre-incarnate. They understood that. Even these evil rabbis, the Masoretes, understood that. They didn't want their own people getting converted by the Septuagint, which actually historically was happening. You can look it up for yourselves. Historically, there's historical quotes that show that the apostles used the Septuagint to convert their own brothers, physical brothers, to go away from Phariseeism and believe in Messiah. So, I mean, this is like a historical fact. So the reason it was definitely intent, in my opinion. It was intentional. We've already seen how many omissions now of that, Mom? That's like 5-6 different times so far, just in Genesis. So this is very intentional. This is
it's intentional. For sure. I mean, once or twice you could say, oh, they made a mistake.
Yeah,
but,
it's too intentional.
Thing. So no,
like I said, now we're coming up to a couple of differences here. Now this is where I would switch gears and say the Masoretics correct because they honor Yahuwah's name instead of a title for his name. So this is very, 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 not too common. I usually don't take the Masoretic over the Septuagint, but since they're honoring his name rather than a title for his name, that's when I would go with the Masoretic. Genesis 6:6, I go with the Masoretic. 6:7, I go with the Masoretic. And now we're back to the problems with trying to get rid of Yahusha. So Genesis 6:8. Here we go. Here's another one. Say that's like a sixth time already they've tried to do that. So here we go. And notice how it's always dealing with the prophets too, which I find interesting, the early prophets of Genesis, how this is showing Yahusha's talking to Noah face to face. Okay, so he's saying, but Noah found favor before Yahuwah Elohim. And the Masoretic would say, but Noah found favor in the eyes of Yahuwah. So again, they don't want Yahusha to be mentioned in the text. So by getting rid of that title that follows the name Yahuwah, it gives an idea that it's always the Father, that Yahusha was never in the Old Testament. That's why modern Judaism today says, show me him in the Tanakh. Show me him in the Torah. If he really is pre-incarnate, he be mentioned in Torah. He is mentioned in Torah multiple times, but the version of your Torah you have, he's omitted. He's still there in the messenger of Yahuwah. I could show a Jewish person how many times the messenger of Yahuwah, not just a messenger, the messenger of Yahuwah is mentioned. Okay, so, but it's a little bit harder with the Masoretic. I'm not going to lie, it is. They've done a lot of damage to where Yahusha is supposed to be mentioned. They're trying to get rid of these cases where he's mentioned. Genesis 6 verse 11, Masoretic text says violence. Septuagint says lawlessness. Now this is a key difference. You could say a doctrinal difference too, because it's limiting to the sins of the pre-flood world as it's just talking about regular violence. And this is where we get this false idea. I know in the Baptist Christian understanding, they look at Genesis 6:11 like, oh, see, he just brought a flood because of murder and this sin and that sin.
Yeah.
No, it was much more than murder. I can assure you, much more than murder brought a flood.
Much more than homosexuality too.
So the Septuagint shows that iniquity in general was filling the earth. So you could say every type of sin was corrupting the earth. It was not just murdering your brother. I remember in my Christian churchianity upbringing, they would use this verse and be like, oh, see, there's just a brother killing a brother. First of all, he should have brought a flood then to Cain.
Yeah, that's right.
So obviously it wasn't just murdering your brother or murdering one another. And there was violence of every kind. It was much more than just violence. Okay, so I definitely side with the Septuagint here. Lawlessness in general was abounding. So that would include drinking blood. That would include mating with a beast. That would include all that.
Yeah.
That's all lawlessness. Okay. So anyway. So
when the genealogy got corrupt,
mhm.
that's when he knew
Mhm.
he had to do something.
Yep. Genesis 6:12. Okay, so again, we have the issue here where they're trying to get rid of Yahusha for practically the 6th or 7th time already. We're only at the 6th chapter of Genesis. Okay. Yahuwah Elohim for the Septuagint, Elohim for the Masoretic. It's weird. I wonder if they have a weird rabbinical idea that angels were talking to them or something, because sometimes that word Elohim is actually referring to angels. So it's kind of weird that you have Yahuwah Elohim and just Elohim in that verse. So, I know there's some rabbinical false theology of the angels helping Yahuwah create, helping them do this, helping them do that. And anyway, so I just find that interesting. So Genesis 6:12 says, and Yahuwah Elohim saw the earth, and it was corrupted, because all flesh had corrupted its way upon the earth. And Elohim looked upon the earth and saw it was corrupt. So in my opinion, you have to be careful too with the Masoretic, because if Elohim is by itself, the Pharisaical rabbinical thought would be that Yahuwah sent the angels to do his work. You see that a lot in rabbinical thought. Because the false Jewish theology is that Yahuwah can't can't go to earth. He can't leave his throne. Somehow that's a grave sin for him to leave his throne. I've heard people say that. I've heard even some version of that from Muslims, even why they don't believe in the incarnation and all that. They're like, oh, well, the creator's not going to leave his throne and come to earth. So anyway, enough of my tangent there. But anyway, so verse 13, I'm not going to go through the same differences here because obviously it's the same exact difference, but verse 13 again. So we have at least 7 or 8 omissions in the first 6 chapters of Genesis of Yahusha being taken out. Okay. So now we're going to go to verse 22 in chapter 6. Okay, verse 22. So again, we have Yahuwah Elohim, Masoretic text Elohim. Okay, we have the same thing in Genesis 7, verse 1. Same thing in Genesis 7, verse 5. And now we're getting into double digits with these omissions. So you got about like 10 or 11. I almost lost count how many times they're taking out the conjunction name of Yahuwah Elohim. They're taking at least one part of it out. Genesis 7, verse 11. The Masoretic text has 17 days. LXX has 27 days. Now, this is an interesting difference. This is talking about the flood here now. So now we're getting into the flood. Genesis 7, verse 11. Okay. In the 600th year of the life of Noah, in the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month. So it's talking about from what it looks like the 2nd month of the year. So this would be the month after Abib. So whatever, I don't think it had a name. It's just the 2nd month of the year. 27th day of that month, the ark rested, or the fountains of the abyss were broken up. So in the Masoretic version is trying to say that it happened on the 17th day of that 2nd month. Very weird. Very weird. There's like a 10-day difference there. I don't know what would be the purpose for that. Stuff like that, you really have to research rabbinical thought and find out why these Masoretes are changing stuff like that. I really don't get it. I don't even see the purpose of changing that there. All right, so Genesis chapter 8, verse 2, Masoretic text omits floodgates of heaven. This is kind of interesting because even I remember growing up, you would always hear that song, the floodgates of heaven, open up the floodgates of heaven. Yeah. So I find it funny they leave that out of Genesis 8, verse 2. I wonder why they do that. So again, Genesis chapter 8, verse 2, it says, the fountains of the deep were closed up and the floodgates. Oh, my bad. Never mind. I'm wrong. Windows of heaven would be the same thing. That's my bad. It's my fault. This is not a difference there. It's just a difference of wording. Okay. So now let me get rid of that. So they do have floodgates. They just call it windows of heaven. Okay. So the Septuagint, I guess, makes it a little bit more specific the way it's worded. All right. So here we go. Genesis 9, verse 7. Now, this is a weird one here. I'm referring to that Yahuwah didn't just give Adam and Kua dominion. He also gave it to Noah and his sons to have dominion over the earth. This is kind of interesting. And this kind of brings up a whole big controversial thing is that what changed from this until the book of Matthew where it says the authority over these kingdoms have been given to Satan. So this kind of throws a little monkey wrench there. If Noah and his family still have dominion. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I want to look more into that. That understanding we had before that from the garden, it was given over to Satan when Adam and Kua fell. That might be due to that lack of understanding might be due to the Masoretic. So as you can see here in the LXX in Genesis 9:7, it says, but do you increase and multiply and fill the earth and have dominion over it. So at the minimum, he's directly, who's the audience here, right? Noah and his family, not all mankind. Noah and his family, who is giving dominion to them. So something must have happened between Genesis 9:7 and Matthew 4. I don't know exactly what happened. I don't think the text says, to be honest, in between those 2 points in time. I don't think we're given the answer literally in the word. So I really don't know. All we can do is speculate what happened. But that kind of threw a monkey wrench in a false understanding that we have that Adam gave authority over to Satan. If the Septuagint is saying that Yahuwah is still giving authority over to Noah and his family now, Satan doesn't have authority at that point. So it kind of throws a monkey wrench in there. So Genesis chapter 9, verse 12, Masoretic text has Yahuwah. Septuagint has Yahuwah Elohim. So again, this is like probably the 12th, 13th time they're trying to get rid of Yahusha here. Okay. The Masoretic text has Elohim. Septuagint has me. Now, I do like that the Masoretic text actually has the title Alua or Elohim there. At least it's being a little bit more specific, but me is not that bad. If Yahuwah is the one speaking, you can still get the understanding who it's talking about. So anyway, Genesis 8 verse 4 again has that issue. Masoretic text 17th, Septuagint has 27th of the month. So again, Genesis 8:15, Yahuwah Elohim, Masoretic text only has Elohim. All right, so now we're going to go to Genesis 10. I think we'll stop tonight after Genesis 10 and 11. These bullet points will be the end for tonight. I don't want to force our brothers and sisters to stay up too late. So I think I definitely want to at least get through 10 and 11 here. Okay, so LXX has Meshech in Genesis 10, verse 23. Genesis 10:23, which, by the way, links up with 1 Chronicles 1:17 of that genealogy, just by the way. So we have a second witness for this, that Meshech should be there. So this is a weird genealogy difference. Don't understand why. It's like I guess they don't like Meshech. I don't know. I could understand it because Meshech is supposed to be one of the guys that attacked them in Gog and Magog war. So I could understand why they don't like him. Actually, hold on. Let me take that back. This might be Meshech here. Just for some reason doesn't have the whole name. It says Mash. I'm assuming that's referring to Meshech. Let me just see something really quick. I might have to take that back because that seems like it has it. It's just not giving you the whole name there. Let me see something really quick. Let me use a modern version. Yeah, that definitely seems like it's the same person. Meshech. Yeah. I gotta take that one back. That's my fault. My bad, guys. That's my fault. All right, so Genesis 10:23 is not a real difference there. It is good to know, though. It's tube to know that 1 Chronicles chapter 1, verse 17 links up with that. It's still tube to know that. Genesis 10, verse 26, Masoretic text omits Canaan from the genealogy. See Luke chapter 3, verse 26. And I've looked more into this. It seems like the Masoretes wanted to take this guy out of their history because they're the only ones that omit him out of history. There's extra biblical literature I'm not going to mention because I really don't want to promote those books, but there are extra biblical books that side with the Septuagint, with Canaan being mentioned in history and that he was a real person that would have existed at that time. Regardless whether those extra biblical books are scripture, that's besides the point. It's just historically we know for a fact this guy existed from multiple witnesses. So for whatever reason, the Masoretes decided, we're going to take him out. And we don't like this guy too much. He's a kind of a apostate. We're going to take him out. That's probably what their thought process was. We don't like him. So same thing happened in Genesis 11, verses 12 to 13. He's completely omitted. Go ahead, Brother Joshua.
I was just going to ask if you could actually go into scriptures on that, just because I think really important.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Genesis, let's see. Let me put that on the screen real quick. So Genesis 10, 26. So 1026. Okay, here we go. Let's see here. Salanth, Yoktan. Huh. Maybe
Verse
it
36.
might have been the wrong verse.
It's verse 36.
Yeah, 36. My bad. Yeah, that's my fault. What the heck? There's no 36 in chapter 10. The heck? What's going on here? I must have got the wrong. Oh, maybe it's chapter 11, 36. Okay.
No, it's chapter 2.
Let me see here. So sometimes I screw up, and then suppose 1026 is what I had it for, but I didn't see it in verse 26. I don't know. I gotta check that. It should be an easy, quick search though, because all you have to do is really see here.
Verse 24.
Verse 24. Thank you, brother. Yeah, so 10 verse 24, you're going to see this Canaan guy, which by the way, he's not related to Noah's grandson. This is a different Canaan, just by the way. So here we go. Septuagint says Canaan, and Canaan begot Selah. Selah begot Eber. So basically, it jumps from Arphaxad in the Masoretic to Selah. They don't mention the person Canaan that would have been the son of Arphaxad who begot Selah. And I think this is also mentioned in Genesis 11, is also omitted there as well. So let me go there too. Genesis 11:12. So Genesis 11 verse 12. So, and I'll share the Wikipedia link I do have too. Once this is uploaded, to show you guys that even according to the article written on Wikipedia, they do agree to think that the Masoretes did this on purpose, to omit this person out of their history. So it says, Arphaxad lived 35 years, Genesis 11 verse 12, and he fathered Shelah. So again, it's makes it look like Arphaxad is the one that's the father of Selah. When you look at the Septuagint, it says Arphaxad lived 135 years and begot Canaan. So Canaan is actually the father of Selah. That's the difference there. So for whatever reason, they didn't like this guy. It seems like they wanted to erase him. Yeah, Luke 3:36. Yeah, let's go to that one just to show you guys that this is something mentioned in the book of Luke. It mentions this. So Luke 3:36. So here we go. Of course, it's spelled differently in the Aramaic and the Hebrew, but it's talking about the same person. Son of Canaan, son of Arphaxad, son of Shaim, son of Noah. I guess that's supposed to be Shem, but in the Aramaic, it's a ah sound, so Shaim. Son of Noah, son of Lamech. So right here in Luke 3:36, is showing that Canaan was the son of Arphaxad, not Selah. So this is something they intentionally changed, and I really don't know the reason for it. I can only conjecture why they would do that. So let's see here. Genesis 11:15. We're back to the ages here. I think, like I said, once we get through this part here, we're going to end it for tonight. So Genesis 11 verse 15. Masoretic has 403. LXX has 330. So again, they're trying to. It's the word I'm looking for. They're trying to extend the genealogy so they live longer. So let's see here. Genesis 11. Let's see, my bad here. Let me get back into the compare. All right, so Genesis 11:15. Okay. So Selah lived after he begot Eber 330 years. So that's the Septuagint. And the Masoretic here says he lived 403 years after begetting Eber. So you have a huge difference there. So that's at least like between 70, 80 years of a difference. So, all right. So I think now we're going to go to the next one. All righty then. Let's see here. Genesis 11:16. Masoretic has 34. Septuagint has 134. And again, to me, this is just opinion, but it's a little weird why they would have children that young. They're living to almost 1,000 years. It's a little weird. I don't think they would need to be having children at 30 years old. So the Masoretic says when Eber had lived 34 years, he fathered Peleg. That's very weird to me. Septuagint says an Eber lived 134 years and begot Peleg. So really what I think happened here is they're like cutting down. They're making them younger when they beget their children so that by the time you get to Abraham, Shem can still be alive, like I said before. That seems to be the only purpose for this. So let's see. Eber lived. Okay, we talked about this. The next verse says 270 in verse 17 verses 430. Go ahead, brother Joshua.
What's their who do they say Shem is? Like what do
Shem, they call Shem
Melchizedek,
king of Salem, according to Mishnahs, according to even apocryphal literature that would be based on rabbinical Mishnahs, like Jasher. They try to claim that he's the king of Salem that met Abraham rather than Yahusha pre-incarnate. So if you go into the Talmud, they actually explain this, that they kind of wanted to retcon, quote unquote, Melchizedek. So there's definitely so that's really the main purpose of this. And you can do your own research. If you don't want to believe me, look up the Talmud for yourself. They'll mention it, that they wanted to make Shem Melchizedek. So anyone that's pulling doctrine from those sources, just be careful. Books like Jasher promote that. That's one of the reasons I don't believe Jasher's scripture, because it says that. So again, that goes back to post-Messiah opinions, because once he came, then they started believing in a Shem Melchizedek figure rather than a divine Melchizedek figure, which really was an ancient understanding. They never thought the king of Salem was a mortal man. That didn't come about until the Talmudic period. So yeah, it's very well known among the Talmudic circles. They admit that they wanted to disqualify him as Messiah and him as Melchizedek, because you got to understand too, when the Brit Hadashah is being written, Paul outright in Hebrews 7 is calling him Melchizedek. These rabbis that know about the Brit Hadashah are like, okay, we got to disqualify this stuff. We got to do something. And we're going to do a future study of this fellowship, Yahuwah willing, at some point in the near future, about the agenda to remove Messiah from the Messianic prophecies. And you're going to see how what I just said ties into all that and what the Masoretes were doing. So they understood that Paul was claiming Yahusha as that Melchizedek who met Abraham in Genesis 14. So they wanted to remove Yahusha as Melchizedek. So that's pretty much the reasoning why Jasher says that, why Mishnah material says that, is to push Yahusha out of the way. So anyway, so hopefully that makes a little bit of sense why you see these genealogical differences. That's a major reason, probably, in my opinion. So let's see here. Verse 18, I just want to see if there's anything different. Yeah, 130 in the LXX, in verse 18, 30 in the Masoretic for Peleg. Let's see here. Then we go to verse 19. Let's see here, 209. Okay, so that's the same. That's the same. Okay, so let's see here. So we still got. Okay, so now we're going to go to Genesis 11 verse 20, where the Masoretic text says 32. So someone's begetting children at 32 versus 132 in the Septuagint. So again, if you just know a little bit about like the life expectancy pre-flood, this doesn't, or, technically this is right after the flood, but again, the 120 years didn't happen until the time of Moses. So people are still relatively living about.
Well, they're living 300 and some odd years.
Aren't some of them still even living like 600 or 700?
Well, I noticed in that one
yeah.
that we were
'Cause-
just looking at,
Yeah.
he only lived 300
Okay.
and whatever,
Okay.
60 something years.
All right.
So it's already being cut down at this
Okay.
point. Almost really more than
So
half.
in Masoretic, it says in verse 20, it says, Reu lived 32. Septuagint in the same verse says 132 and begot Serug. So they're still begetting children well into their 100 years. They're not having children young yet.
No.
It would only make sense that they start having children at 20, 30 years old once they get to the 120 year expectancy, in my opinion. That would make the most sense. But because really you only need to live like 670 years after begetting sons and daughters. You don't have to be living a whole 100 years after you have children.
Moses was probably about 50 or so before.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, because he didn't
He
get
was
into-
not he was at least though 50, 60 years when he had a child.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So let's see here. So verse 22, I think will be that's it for tonight. We did verse 22 just now, right? So I think that's gonna be it for tonight, guys. Please stay tuned. We'll be going deeper into this study. I just wanted to give you guys just enough as like a little appetizer here of all these differences. Yeah, so hopefully this shows you why like I feel the need to go into other versions of the Tanakh and not just go into the basic Masoretic based translations we have today. If you want to get a Septuagint translation of Septuagint even electronically to test out for yourselves, please let me know. I can leave links on all these studies from the free internet archive for Brenton's. There's a free Brenton's 1851 English translation of Septuagint. I'll try to find other modern ones. I'm pretty sure there's an LXX 2012 out there. You can pretty much find these on MindSword, by the way. You can find these on Bible apps. Most of them will have them. Bible Discovery. I said MindSword already. BibleStudyTools.com. Another great resource to test the LXXE, aka Brenton's. Yeah. So and also the Samaritan Pentateuch in English you can get on Bible Support. And now MindSword has done an update for any of those that don't know. You can put Word software files on MindSword now. You can put like MindSword now is like multi-compatible with all these programs. So you can pretty much copy and paste your Word files as long as they're not encrypted. I should warn you. I tried to do ESV and that didn't happen. My free ESV from the Word software, because it's encrypted, I can't copy and paste it to my MindSword app, unfortunately. But anyway, so feel free, guys, reach out if you want to know more about this stuff. I have playlists that I'm going to start putting in the description of these studies. So thank you for joining us, and hopefully this was edifying for all those involved. And have a great rest of your Shabbat, all of our brothers and sisters in Yahuwah Almighty, Yahushua Messiah. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.